It has been a lengthy layoff, but now we are just mere days away from the Eastern Conference Finals, where Toronto FC will be taking on the Montreal Impact in the 401 derby. That is all set to take place at Olympic Stadium. We have so much to get into, but first I will let you know that we have the full squad back here in training. Michael Bradley, Josie Altidore, and Armando Cooper all back from their respective international duties. So this is something for everyone to look forward to. So yes, we know that it is a big rivalry between these two sides, but the topic we want to know, head-to-head, Sebastian Giovinco, Ignacio Piatti, how do these measure up?
Yeah, well, let's start with Piatti because he's the best player in the Montreal Impact, with all due respect to a player like Didier Drogba. But 3 goals in 3 playoff games thus far, 17 on the year. As much as we believe that Sebastian Giovinco was an MVP snub in terms of Toronto FC, Impact supporters will all believe that Piatti deserved MVP consideration.
I agree.
I'm with you. The thing is, of all players in MLS who have had Toronto FC's number, Piatti's right atop that list. The menacing runs down the left-hand side, working from the outside in, have really caused problems, whether it be last year's playoff game, Danielle, or the 3 goals he scored against TFC this year. What TFC needs to do, and this is what's different this time around, is TFC's playing a different formation in the 3-5-2, so Steven Beitashour isn't isolated in coverage, that he has Eric Zavaleta or Michael Bradley coming over in support, so I think that bodes well. And what TFC has shown in this system is the ability to press high and throw very talented players off their games. Whether it was a Jack Harrison with New York City or a Chris Pontius with Philadelphia, they gave them no time and space, so they can't allow a player like Piatti to run at them. Make sure that he has his back to goal, and that's how you limit his effectiveness.
Yeah, I agree. I think finding the right balance is so important, because you can't get too tight to him, because he's got that one where he uses his body and he'll roll you. But also, if you sit off him and he gets at, he's deceptively quite quick. He's got the ability to go past you either way. I think you touched on it just before, that cover is so important. So if Zavaleta is in a one-on-one situation, can Drew Moore come over, give him a little bit of protection, or Michael Bradley? Also, be brave with your defending, especially around the box, because if you give him half a yard, he's got the ability to stick it in the top corner, as we saw at the end of the regular season, or has that one where he cuts inside and he plays a really nice shape ball into Mancosu or Dorantu.
See, the thing is, for all the praise that Piatti's getting, like, he's no Sebastian Giovinco. Like, Sebastian Giovinco is the crown jewel of MLS, and the Montreal Impact has a much bigger issue trying to contain Giovinco, because it's not just Seba's game. Since coming back from injury, over the last 5 games, he's scored 5 goals. This has been his best form of the season thus far. And it's not just Giovinco, it's the team around him. And the partnership right now with Josie Altidore, who, by the way, scored 13 goals in his last 17 games, it's pick your poison. Very few teams in world football today would play 2 strikers up top. TFC does it with perfection. And if Laurent Simon is going to try to limit the effectiveness of Altidore, who's going to mark out Giovinco? Like, Giovinco plays to the left-hand side. I'm sorry, but Kamara is more of a center back than a right back, and Giovinco likes to operate in that space. I think the Impact have real issues trying to contain Giovinco in this one.
Toronto FC and Montreal have seen each other on so many occasions this season. It's fair to say that there's no secrets that are between these two sides. Everything is out in the open in terms of what they can do. But could you pinpoint perhaps a performance this season where TFC was really at their best against Montreal?
Well, I liked how they played at times in the 2-2, but it was really the 2-0 game back in April outside at Stade Saputo, where really Josie and Seba were a handful. They dealt with the Montreal attack. I thought they played very well that match, but I'm kind of flipping the page on what happened over the course of the regular season, because these are 2 very different teams, especially Toronto FC. It seems like the Montreal Impact raised their game when everything's to play for. We saw it happen at the 2015 CONCACAF Champions League when they played indoors, inside the Olympic Stadium, and they came up with a number of big results with big crowds watching, including a 1-1 draw with Mexican club Pachuca. So the Impact, for me, I think they had a frustrating regular season with all kinds of highs and lows, but it's the way they hit their form, Terry, and are able to grind out games when it matters the most. That's what impresses me about their team.
What I like about Montreal right now is they have a clear philosophy. Every player on that team knows what their job is. There's only really Yongo and Cabrera who are under the age of 30. There's so much experience in that team. They won't make many mistakes. TFC will have to work for any opportunities. They know that they're they play from that defensive shape. They're very good on the counter.
They wanna play on the counter.
They've got
Yeah.
Enduro's pace, Mancosu, who's playing with the point to prove. He's come from the lower leagues in Italy, where he was very successful. He's enjoying his time here, and of course Piatti creating something out of nothing. For me, I think TFC take confidence from the last game against Montreal in that 2-2 in the regular season. They conceded a couple goals that you know what they can do better on, but for the majority of the game, maybe 60 minutes, they were the better side.
Now we know this game is going to be played at Olympic Stadium. The turf there is not ideal for either side. Greg Vanney was joking about it earlier today. He said, you know, we have one set of turf that's really good in the bubble. We didn't even want to use that because it is way too good for what we're going to expect at Olympic Stadium. So how does TFC deal with that? And do you think that Drogba is going to play for Montreal?
I've been lucky enough to play there, or unlucky enough. Yeah, seriously. I think that's off a couple years of the cartilage in my knees, but it really is a tricky surface. It's so important you get to that ball before it bounces. Defensively, it allows you to really close players down, get their heads down, because you almost need to take an extra touch to control the ball. This also allows then back fours to play a little bit higher. Also, you're not worried about that ball in between, because anything on the turf really picks up pace and goes into the keeper. It makes for a real frantic, high-tempo game. For me, on Didier Drogba, he played 30 minutes in the last game, came on and set a goal. I know he doesn't like the turf. I think if Montreal at the Impact don't have to use him, they won't, but he always seems to have a role.
Yeah, for me, never mind the argument that the team's better without Didier Drogba, because I don't buy it. Still at, in this advanced age, this advanced juncture of his career, he's still a game breaker. He's still an absolute talent. But let's call this game for what it is. It is a cash grab on carpet. That's what, and I get why they're staging the game there. It has nothing to do with weather. It's the fact that they can almost triple the attendance inside the building for that game. But it doesn't do the game justice.
It does make for a great atmosphere. I'm telling you, when I went out there, I had goosebumps on my back.
60,000, I get it.
The TFC little supporter section there, they're singing their hearts out. It does make for
but ask
something
any
pretty
player
incredible.
to a man, no one wants to play on that.
No.
So speaking of that environment, that atmosphere, the crowd is going to be loud. They're going to be on top of you, kind of acting as though they're that 12th man out on the pitch. So how does TFC counter that? Is it an approach where you stay defensive right off the top, or do they take it as they did against NYC and be really aggressive trying to go for that first away goal?
I think the first 20 minutes is important again. I think it's going to be an all-out battle, especially in the middle of the park. I think if TFC can stop Montreal's threats, Piatti, we talked about Odoro, Mancosu up front, they've got so many of their own that away from home, we've won our last 4, we've drawn 1, we've scored 15 goals, I think 14 goals. So goals are going to come. It's just important for me on that turf. You just don't make any silly mistakes. You're very composed in possession. If anything, you go a little bit more direct. Josie Altidore, for me, I think he's going to be very important, getting a hold of the ball up top. And also, I think set pieces will be important. I thought, just quickly, Montreal against the New York Red Bulls looked a little bit shaky there. Sort of half zonal, half man marking system at times caused confusion.
Just a quick point on the away form, and I'm going to make a big call here. If TFC scores the away goal in the first leg, they will win this tie. Just like it was so important to keep a clean sheet in the first leg against New York, if they can find an away goal based upon the aggregate scoreline, they're in good stead. And this team has been a dynamo away from home. Terry said it, 14 goals in their last 5 away. They haven't been shut out away from BMO Field since May 28th. It's an incredible stretch. This team has been one of the best teams away from home all season long. I don't know why you wouldn't be, or people watching wouldn't be confident that they're not going to go out and get something here. They're such a good away team. My X factor very quickly, Armando Cooper has been the missing link on this team since he joined. Just his composure in the midfield. And that's an area where I think that Montreal has got the better of Toronto FC in recent matchups. But with Armando Cooper, his composure on the ball, his ability to take contact, draw fouls, I think he can frustrate the midfield 3 of the Montreal Impact, and he's going to be critical to the successes of TFC in this away game. I can't wait for it. I think they're going to come up with a big performance, Terry.
He's also fresh. He was suspended for Panama's second game as well, so I'm sure he's ready to go.
Well, Michael Bradley was asked earlier today, what do you think about being the favorites in this city? And he said, this means nothing when it comes to this series. We need to let our play speak for itself, and that is all about to go down on November 22nd. That is Tuesday. You can tune in on television, on TSN, but better yet, why don't you make the road trip down to Montreal? TFC needs you guys there. All the support in full effect. If you can't, tune in on television, as we said, on TSN, or join the social conversation using the hashtag TFC Live.